As I've been thinking, in this process, what does all this look like for us? What are we going to look like when we come out on the other side of this? And one of the things that's been so alive in my heart is we could be being fully integrated into a posture and a connection at home that maybe the church at large only knows how to experience when they're together corporately. That even when we speak in terms of revival, generally we're thinking in terms of what's going on within the corporate expression. But it feels like a cross-pollination going on in here this morning. Like, yes, what happens in this room is powerful. What happens in this room is unlike anything I've ever experienced, and now being in ministry for almost 25 years. Yet I'm experiencing some things at home now, in the secret place now, things we've believed, things we've declared and proclaimed. It's almost as if we're being given a supernatural grace. It's not almost as if. We are being given a supernatural grace to take what we've been learning and seeing and receiving and understanding and given no choice but to assimilate that into our day-to-day lives. And it's creating a new hope in me, and I believe it's creating a new hope in you. And Today's interesting because it's one of those many opportunities I've had to eat my own words, because I said I will not stand in an empty room and talk to a camera. My TV days are over. Well, here we are. And things have progressed in such a way that we felt it was right to bring the family together in whatever way that we could. And I just had this picture really early this morning. I had this picture of what would happen when, I don't say this in a egotistical or braggadocious way, but this is kind of how I feel today, is what would it happen when Paul would sit down and write one of those letters, and then all of a sudden it would arrive and the church would sit together as a family and say, what is God apostolically saying to the family? And I don't think it's a reach to say that that's what the Lord's doing in the earth in our day. An apostolic church is the fruit of the other side of the challenge that we're facing. We're going to function as an apostolic bride more than we ever have before. We're going to see tremendous things take place by way of us accessing fully the grace that's being made available to us in this hour. So I bless you. I'm thankful that you've joined us from wherever you are, all over the place. Loved this today. As soon as I walked in and they were practicing, I said, we may not want to change this. I like this. I get Tyler back on the mandolin, so that's good. It's just a great sound. I'm thankful for those that are here. We only have a few other people here besides that, but I do have Johnson here with me, and I've got Lyndon here with me, and some of my staff from DTM is here. I want to especially thank Blake from Dutch's ministries, Dutch's son-in-law, but he's a member of our church. He's a part of our family, and he's here running this. Alton's running sound for us. So it's just an awesome thing to be able to speak to you today. And we're going to jump right in and see what the Holy Spirit has for us. So we love you. You guys can go find a chair somewhere, social distancing spot somewhere, except for Matt and Paige. They're probably failing in the area of social distancing. So I know that I am in my home. So I want to talk a little bit tonight. This morning, I don't really want to talk about the coronavirus per se, but I do want to talk about where I believe that we are, and I want to prophetically speak into some of the sense that I have that the Lord is in the process even now of taking what the enemy has meant for evil and turning it and using it for good. And because we're people that believe that the Lord does take what the enemy has meant for evil and he turns and uses it for good, it's important not to become students of what the enemy has meant for evil. But it's important to become students of how the Lord's turning this to use it for good. And I hope that makes sense to you. I hope that connects with your heart to say this is not about studying the coronavirus, COVID-19, to see what's happening globally around the world. I would challenge you to be careful where you get your news from, even in this hour, but make sure that you're tuned in to the right station. You're receiving this from the Lord. So I'm going to give some practical things. I think before I do that, I think I'll just encourage you to give. Obviously, I think it's really important, and I'm going to be sending some things out to the churches that we oversee this week, but it's really important at this time that you don't let fear tell you what to do with your money. And one of the most important things that can happen for the kingdom at large right now is for the storehouses to be full. And so as you bring your tithe and offerings into the storehouse, the prophecy of Malachi is that there will be meat in my house. And we're already strategizing, we're already scheming, we're already trying to determine ways to help people in the financial sense as we go through this. Obviously, we're praying for a sudden end to come to this virus, and more than flattening the curve, we want to see the thing just come to an end and God just come in power and cancel this assignment of the enemy. But also to look at it from a financial standpoint, which frankly may have a far further reaching impact down the road than the virus itself is where we're at economically. And in that, you position yourself to be able to come out on the other side of this really ready to prosper in advance. And that's a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about today. So there's a link, I believe, for you to give. You guys know me. I don't understand how all of this works, but I do believe there's a link for you to give tithely. If you're watching this through YouTube or Facebook Live, there's a way for you to donate. And this all goes right into Hope Chapel. If you're a partner of Damon Thompson Ministries and you want to continue to give that way, that's not what this offering will go toward. This will go all toward Hope Chapel, toward our local storehouse that we're going to release these resources to be able to help a lot of people in an hour of need. I'm really thankful to say we're very healthy. And so we're not coming to you with one of these pitches of we're going to have to shut the doors if you don't give. One of the things we've not done is we avoided the dog and pony show. And there's a lot of ministries that have built so much around themselves to try to appeal to people. None of that's accessible at this point. You can't sell people on your coffee bar, and you can't sell people on your children's program, and it's just is the presence and the spirit of wisdom and revelation enough to be able to sustain a people? And so we're just saying, as you give into us, we're looking for opportunities to do more and more to be able to help people. We've got people that have lost their jobs, obviously, during this time. Some of you watching may have lost your jobs. We're praying for you. We're absolutely believing that the Lord is going to take whatever's been taken from you during this time. The scripture says that's restored back to you sevenfold. So we're believing people are going to come out of this with maybe that you were doing a job to survive and you're going to move into the dream scenario you had. Maybe you would not have taken that risk otherwise. And so God's going to use all of this. But we want you to be faithful to give. Continue. Those of you that are a part of other churches that are watching this, please continue to be faithful in the area of your tithe and offering toward your local church to be able to help us really keep these storehouses strong, because we've got a lot to do to advance the kingdom in the days to come. Amen. So you can give through whatever outlet you see is available there. We don't have any announcements because we don't know what we're going to be doing by this time next week. I will say to you that as the Lord leads, we're going to just continue to address you. We're going to continue to share. We may do a setup with one of these where we've got multiple leaders up here and we just dialogue. We'll do a lot of stuff to just really share with you where we are. But what's really been alive in my heart over the last few days especially is this idea that Paul is telling the church how to handle moments of great anxiety. Now, they're dealing with something far more significant. I don't want to compare coronavirus to the persecution of the early church, but the principles that were taught to the church during a challenging time are still applicable. And Paul says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. And the peace of God that surpasses all understanding will guard your heart and your mind through Christ Jesus. Let's just break that apart a little bit. Be anxious for nothing. Don't be anxious because there's a virus. Don't be anxious because this is affecting your finances. Stay out of a posture of anxiety. If you can avoid anxiety, then there's a strategy hidden in all of this that can bring you into a greater measure of breakthrough. But you're not going to get there by way of stress, by way of worry, by way of fear or anxiety. Those are not the vehicles Yahweh uses to transport us into more. He gets us there by way of faith and love. So be anxious for nothing, but in everything through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. Oftentimes when we find ourselves in a place of desperation, we want to respond with desperation. But what we're supposed to respond with is thanksgiving, and that actually can cause the desperate moment to be changed into what Yahweh intended and designed it to be. I want you to respond This is funny because I was talking to the group that we have here, who I'm glad y'all are sitting out there. I've at least got a few. This looks about like what it looked like when right before revival hit. We were talking about that this morning. Just a handful of people scattered in here, and but it's good faces. It's familiar faces. So I want to say this to you because I think it's crucial. I want you to know that what I'm going to share with you today, I'm sure most of you are already doing. And I felt like today with the live stream, even as I was praying about it, is I didn't want it to just go to the local Hope Chapel family that lives here among us in Batesburg. We don't even normally live stream Sunday mornings at all. If we ever do, it would be something we would just do for a handful that were in an unusual situation. Or in a time like this, I would normally have thought, we'll just send this out to the local company of people and that'll be sufficient. But I really felt like the Lord said, you need to send this out globally to the people that are tracking and connecting with you. A lot of what I'm going to say today, I know it's going to be the old adage of preaching to the choir, because I know you're doing a lot of this, but I feel like I need to review and just sort of reinforce some of the stance that I believe most of us are coming into. I've been in communication with a lot of you over the last couple of weeks by way of phone calls and text and emails, and I'm really thankful for the way people are responding. And I don't think it's a stretch to say, let me make this statement. I don't think it's a stretch to say that we've been being prepared for this for years. We've been coming out of a performance orientation. We've been understanding that what we do is not who we are, how much we get done for God. None of that works for you right now. If that's your litmus test for success, you're in trouble right now, because all performance is being stripped from you, and it's becoming about, can you really be seated enough in beloved identity to dare to say, I'm okay during this season. And not only am I going to survive this, I'm going to grow and finish some things in my heart and life. I'm talking to you a lot about what's going on in me. I keep lying to you because I keep telling you we're finishing the exchange. And we're not finished, obviously, with the exchange. And I'm seeing this as an act of hell, an act of darkness, an act of the enemy. Yes, Yahweh has always 100% of the time taken these moments and he's turned them to give people the ability to grow into who he actually designed for them to be in the earth. So I want you to respond. I want you to obey the instructions that are coming from the president. I want you to obey the instructions that are coming from the governor, from local authorities. I want you to stay out of large groups. I want you to just be okay to be at home. And I know that's a challenge, but I'm telling you, if we can see this correctly, we can learn and grow in a really supernatural way during the season that we're in. So obey those instructions, but do not obey them out of fear. Obey them out of honor. Honor authority. If they're asking you to do something, if you think it's an overreaction, okay, I'd rather overreact than underreact in an hour like this. So I'm just going to follow the leaders. I've prayed for our leaders because I'm thankful I'm not in their position. They're having to look at the economy, and they're having to look at the virus. They're having to look at people that are going to lose their health care because they're going to lose their jobs, who are going to be susceptible to other things. There's just a ton going on. Let's pray for them and make their job easier by doing exactly what it is that they're asking us to do. And not out of a place of fear. Again, one of the things that I think this is doing is causing people to realize that maybe some of their trust was in something other than Yeshua himself. And so when the financial thing starts to move, all of a sudden the fear thing starts to elevate. When you start to have a symptom, and all of a sudden the fear thing starts to elevate. What that can be is a gift to you, for you to recognize that you are not as seated in beloved identity as you were designed to be. Don't beat yourself up over that. Don't condemn yourself over that. But let's take the time in the secret place to judge those feelings of fear, anxiety, stress, worry, whether it be about health, whether it be about finance, whether it be about the health of family members, whatever that is. Okay, whatever that is, global pandemic, that is meant to induce fear in you. But the kingdom man sees all of this differently, and he sees it as an opportunity to be able to see some governmental authority leveraged towards the apostolic church coming out on the other side of this. That's going to make a global impact. So not operating out of fear, and I want us to get a revelation of how to connect with what Yahweh is doing in regards to taking what the enemy has meant for evil and using it for good. For me personally, it's causing me to judge the last seeds of restlessness that have been present on the inside of me. Had you come to me before this and said, are you at rest? Absolutely. The answer would have been absolutely. I mean, when you look at what my life looked like, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, compared to what it looks like now, yes, it's rest. But there is another measure of rest. I can feel the people in the room with me take a deep breath when you say, there's another level of being seated. And remember, when we begin to talk about interior duplicity some time ago, that oftentimes interior duplicity is not an issue of light and darkness being present in the believer. Oftentimes it's an issue of rest and restlessness, both being present in the believer, which creates for that individual a double-mindedness that causes a manifestation of instability. And remember what I taught you about being double-minded. Doesn't mean that you have 50% of two paradigms present. I would not have identified myself 2 weeks ago as 50% in rest and 50% in restlessness. But I would have identified myself as 99% in rest and 1% in restlessness, and this has awakened me to another reality that maybe it's more like 90 and 10, or maybe it's more like 80 and 20. Wherever you fall on that scale, that's a gift, because I don't want to stop with my definition of rest. I want to move fully into Abba's idea of what rest is supposed to look like for me. And so our hand has been forced, in a sense, to pull us out of the last shreds of busyness, out of the last shreds of performance orientation, and that's revealing in me, okay, there's still some places where I've got to come into a posture of rest. So my prayer for all of us is that we're judging those last parts of our life that have a tendency to get agitated and restless. Secondly, is for some, this has not been so much an issue for me, but it's with some I've communicated it is. It's the double-mindedness is there's still some fear there. There's still some illegitimate trust, some trust in the systems of this world. All right? And so when the system of the world seems to be failing, the promise according to Isaiah is in the day of calamity, the word to the righteous is it shall be well with you. The Psalm 91, which I've been living in for my friend Harvey Sauls, praying for him. I know all of you guys are connecting with us. Pray for Harvey and Sally and their girls. Is that Psalm 91's been a big thing to the family in a time of real challenge. And so I've been looking at the idea that 1,000 may fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come nigh your dwelling. That context of that is disease and pestilence. Interestingly. So I think the Lord is wanting to deal with the idea that present within many of us is still a fear concerning things from the outside being able to affect who we are. And as Paige began to sing so prophetically this morning, you're in front of me, you're beside me, you're around me, you're in me. I'm under the shadow of the wings of the Almighty. I'm under the strong, mighty arm of the Lord, and the sense of protection being there. Still respond to the decrees of the government. I'm not responding to any of that out of fear. I'm responding to all of that out of honor. I want to be honorable. I want to make their job easier. I want to become an intercessor instead of an impediment into the breakthrough that I believe that we're moving toward. The other thing is Romans 12 is, I beseech you, brethren, therefore, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. It goes on then, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good, acceptable, perfect will of God, which is totally, absolutely perfect will of God. There's not three wills of God: the good, You know that, right? So not the acceptable will of God, the good will of God, and the perfect will of God. No, it's perfect, more perfect, and the most perfect will of God. And so there's a transformation that happens to us when we do not allow ourselves to be conformed to the system of this world. All right? When you and I begin to live our lives in such a way that there's nothing in us that is a conformist, but we're actually the seed of a revolution of a new culture, a whole new way of doing life, a whole new way of thinking, a whole new way of responding, a whole new way of believing, a whole new way of living in a brand new way. This is what I feel like Yahweh's calling us into. One of the most important things that is going to happen on the other side of this is family connections are going to be strengthened in a way that they never have been before. And we're going to see greater connection between husbands and wives, between mothers and children, between fathers and children, and the whole family unit is being given an opportunity to live and love and be joined together in a way that the Father designed us to be. It's really is an opportunity for a beautiful thing to come to pass. And so, except for the homeschooling part of this, which is not a beautiful thing, but we will survive. So we will survive, or as soon as they let me, I'm going to hire a tutor. So anyway, I need an at-home teacher so that, somebody else can handle that. But it's just been an opportunity for family to connect and for laughter to come into the home. My kids have real muddy shoes right now. I was talking about this earlier, where we're just outside. I took my boys camping. I was like, what better place to social distance than we just go camp and sleep in the horse trailer and build a fire and fish and, cook breakfast early the next morning. But some of the memories, create memories during this time. Don't let anxiety paralyze you to the point that you miss an opportunity to create memories. I want to go back on the photo log. That's not actually what you call it, but the thing on the phone where you go back and look at the photos. And I want to look back over this season and see smiles, and I want to see laughter, and I want to see that what the enemy meant for evil, Yahweh turned and used it for good, especially in the area of family. So keep that necessary transgenerational consciousness alive in you that's been such a crucial part of our lives and our message here. The next thing I want to mention to you is focus on the one single priority, the devotional life. It's the message we'll have here forever, that in this current supernatural seat of beloved identity that the Father has given to us, focus on the one thing lifestyle, on the single priority. If the eye is single, the whole of the body is full of light. And so you're meant to, we're going to get to Isaiah 60 maybe in just a little while, you're meant in an hour of darkness to produce a measure of light that comes by way of a singular focus. That simple devotion to Jesus is what the Father is jealous of in this hour. Let me say that again. Simple devotion to Jesus is what the Father is jealous of in this hour. So I'm asking you to take that bridal posture, get in that Shulamite thinking, and allow yourself to experience Hephzibah in a way that Hephzibah may have become a side item for us. Hephzibah, the new identity we receive out of Isaiah, is that the Lord takes delight in us. And allow yourself to walk with Him, even as the seasons are changing, even as weather's coming in that enables you to get outside and walk and enjoy. Let the Hephzibah revelation really get rooted in your heart, because it's positioning us to be able to live a lifestyle where we're focused on one singular thing. And that peripoiesis, that exclusivity, that peculiarity is going to be a great line, going to create a great line of demarcation between the wicked and the righteous in the days to come. So really stirred about that. So tend the fire in the secret place as never before. With this, I'm just in my own life, I feel a measure of grace present in the secret place that I have not before all of this began to happen. So my bunkhouse times, my time with the Lord in the morning, walking with Him in the evening, in the afternoon, things that I've done for years, they're all being amplified in a supernatural way during this season. So enjoy that. Just really embrace that. Tend the fire in the secret place and expect that as we emerge from this, we're going to have received a grace to shine into the darkness with a marvelous light. I see so many people in such a panic and a just reactionary posture to this. Even leaders, even church leaders who are worried about how they keep their influence and how they keep their people connected. I'm telling you that I've not had one thought of that for our local company of people or the sons that we've sent out all over the country and up into Canada. At no point in time have I worried that people are going to lose their way during this. I think you're going to find your way. I'm convinced of it. I'm not. That's not just preacher speak. I believe people are going to come out on the other side of this and say, that finally finished a sense of restlessness in me that was keeping me from the fullness of all the Father had. I can feel it. I can feel it in me when I'm saying that to you right now. So we're going to receive a fresh grace to shine into the darkness with marvelous light. In light of that, let's go to Isaiah 60. If you got your Bible there at home, you can turn. I'm not going to read a lot today, I don't think. I'm going to share some things out of Isaiah 60, and then we'll just kind of see where we go from there. I did decide I could go really long today because I can't even tell if you're not there. So like if we were here and you get up and leave, I have to watch you. I got windows all the way around. I watch you walk all the way to your car. But you close your computer or turn your TV off or put on Sports Center, and I won't even know any of it happened. So just I may go for several hours here. I'm not really. This is way too close to my Christian television televangelist preaching days I used to live in back. If I had a good suit, matter of fact, I'm going to unbutton my collar just to make sure that I don't feel like I have a suit and tie on today. But I stared at these cameras for years, and I'm thankful to have them today, but I'm thankful that I've been delivered from the world of lights and cameras. So really hair and makeup, that was the worst part of the whole experience. So let's look at Isaiah 60. Let me share some things with you. If I look fat today, they say the camera adds 10 pounds, and we have 4 of them in here. So I'm really 40 pounds lighter than I am right now, and I have abs too. The cameras don't show that. That's real. That's keeping it real. All right, Isaiah 60. Rise up in splendor and be radiant, for your light has dawned. Yahweh's glory now streams from you. Look carefully. Darkness blankets the earth, and thick gloom covers the nations. But Yahweh arises upon you, and the brightness of his glory appears over you. Nations will be attracted to your radiant light, and kings to the sunrise glory of your new day. Lift up your eyes higher, look all around you, and believe. For your sons are returning from far away, and your daughters are being tenderly carried home. Watch as they all gather together, eager to come back to you. Then you will understand and be radiant. Those are those words, sparkle and flow, that we've talked about. Then you will understand and you will sparkle and flow together. Your heart will be thrilled and swell with joy. The fullness of the sea will flow to you, and the wealth of the nations will be transferred to you. Caravans of camels will cover your land, young camels loaded with goods from Midian and Ephah. All the wealthy merchants from Sheba will come bearing gold and frankincense and singing the praises of Yahweh. All the flocks of Kedar will be gathered to you, and the rams of Nebaioth will be yours as acceptable sacrifices on my altar, and I will adorn with more glory my glorious temple. I will adorn with more glory my glorious temple. Now, it's important for us to understand who this happens to, yes, but it's also important for us to understand when this happens. When this happens, darkness is blanketing the earth, and thick gloom covers the nations. I don't know a word. I looked. I really dug into my intellectual vocabulary and even looked in some different lexicons. I want to find the right word to communicate where we're at, and the right word is gloom. I can't find a better word. There is a sense, listen to this, there's a sense of impending gloom that is going to be met, according to Isaiah 60, with a historically radiant light. So the answer for the gloom is not the transformation of the situation. Because I'm going to tell you the impact of what's going on globally right now is going to last beyond this virus. It's going to last beyond this virus. There's some financial decisions that are being made right now. I'm praying for wisdom for those that are making those decisions there's going to be an impact beyond this, beyond the virus itself. So the transformation of the situation is not the only way the nations will see light. Understand this. I am praying for an end to this virus. I'm decreeing over it. I'm praying it wherever I have governmental influence. For those of you that know me, know I believe that's the cosmos. So I am praying for this thing to come to an end, and I'm believing that we're seeing the first stages of breakthrough of that begin to happen as the mortality rate's incredibly high with our friends in Italy. I know some of you are watching us now, but the report of new cases is going down every single day. So we're praying that happens, and we're wanting to see the curve flatten. We're wanting to learn from those that have experienced all of that. Yes, true and right. However, what I have the most control over is the measure of light that comes forth out of me because of the commitment to beloved identity in the secret place. What measure of light are you and I going to be able to shine forth into the culture? For the scriptural command to us is that we are not to conduct ourselves as those who have no hope. We are not. In a time of tremendous challenge, we are to conduct ourselves differently, and the difference is to be hope versus hopelessness. The answer for gloom is light. The answer for darkness is light. You and I are going to be given a supernatural, prophetic grace to manifest a light that's not been seen, I believe, on the earth since the first release of the initial apostolic church. I know that's a bold statement, but it's one I've taken before the Lord, and I literally believe we're being prepared for global revival in the midst of all of this. So how you and I handle this is extremely important, and I want to control what I can control instead of freaking out over what I can't control. What I can control is my life in the secret place. What I can control is my commitment as a bride to the bridal chamber with the bridegroom to experience the measure of intimacy that I was designed for. And maybe some of that, if I'm honest, I have been implementing with a measure of restlessness. I have been implementing some of that with a measure of busyness that's not available to me now. Therefore, the jealousy of the Lord is saying, let's take an hour where darkness is covering the globe and thick gloom is over the nations, and let's let you begin to arise and shine. Your light has come, and the glory of Almighty Yahweh is going to begin to stream from you. So I'm asking the Lord how to stream this light. We're one of the things we learned in the revival, specifically when we were down on the Gulf Coast, what we called the Gulf Stream revival, is that the Lord spoke to me one night and said, it is a live stream. They call it live streaming. It is a live stream. There's life in the stream. And the translation here Dr. Simmons gives of Isaiah is that radiant light now streams from you. There's life in your stream, in what you are emitting, in your frequency. We've been learning this, right? Isn't that amazing? That your frequency is beginning to scream light and life. What color are you emitting right now? Think about that. Think about how we are becoming a group of people that are able to manifest a color and able to manifest a sound that goes right into the gloom and begins to produce breakthrough. I'm praying that I know this is an unusual prayer, but I'm praying that people who are in hopelessness are going to get a hold of this live stream right now, going to listen to it later on, and going to be, I've got to change my response to this. Instead of seeing this as an hour in which God is farther from us, He's actually closer than He ever has been at any other point in history, and He's giving us grace, listen, an opportunity to stream forth a glorious, radiant light. Isn't that awesome? It's an awesome thing. So the gloom is covering the nations, and then you and I become kings filled with radiant light, that nations are attracted to what's streaming from us, and kings to the sunrise glory of a new day. The very next thing that happens there is transgenerational consciousness. Sons and daughters begin to return from afar. I believe some that are meant to be joined to fathers that have lost their way, this is going to be an hour. Some of them are going to watch this stream. This is going to be an hour where the grace of God is going to come, say to you, you cannot afford in this season to be in isolation and independence any longer. You're going to have to find your way back home, and they're going to find their way back into the order and the connection that they were designed for. Interestingly, the Lord's been showing me through a very natural prophetic picture that there are people who have functioned like goats that are going to begin to find their way back to this house, and they're going to become sheep that used to function as goats. And the Lord had said, you need to open your heart to receive people that were living like goats when they were here in another season and joined you in another season, because I'm going to use this to soften their hearts and give them a sheep-like nature. It's amazing what the Lord, that's, for some of our local people, you'll know more about what that means than some of the others. But I'm just saying the Father is going to begin to cause sons and daughters to find their way back home. That's the prophecy. The next part of the prophecy is a transfer of wealth that's going to begin to come into the hands of the righteous. Now, how you do that is not by focusing on how to attain wealth. I actually think it's very important for you and I to remain during this in a posture of generosity. For those of us that have assets and resources, it's very easy to slide over into how do I take advantage right now of other people's economic calamity. There are going to be things coming up for sale, and I want you to avoid that posture. I want you to be ready to obey when the Holy Spirit tells you to take action. But I really want us to get in a real seat of generosity so that when other people are struggling there in this hour, instead of seeing that as an opportunity to take from them, what if out of honor we begin to resource and help as many people find their way into this light as is possible? Again, I do believe opportunities are going to come, and Yahweh's going to give you whispers on how to increase during this season. However, let's make sure that we make a good distinction between the wicked and the lost. Let's make a good distinction between the wicked and the lost. There are three categories of people I believe you discover in the New Testament. The first category of people is known as the righteous. The next category of people is known as the lost. The third is known as the wicked. The promise is not that the wealth is going to be taken from the lost and given to the righteous. Instead, it's going to be taken from the wicked and given over to the righteous. You and I are going to learn to be increasingly generous to the lost. And it's going to become a great tool of evangelism. I think we're going to see incredible amounts of people come into a born-again, new creation experience by way of just being positioned to show generosity on behalf of the King. So we're going to just see great increase. We're going to see great transfer. I was listening to a podcast that Dutch Sheets and Chuck Pierce did together. Dutch sent it to me, and I was riding on my Polaris Ranger down the dirt roads, just praying in the Spirit and listening to this podcast. And Chuck began to talk about, these are not the words he used, but these are the words that came in my spirit when I heard it, a global economic revolution or realignment. A global economic realignment. And what I believe the Lord is going to begin to do through all of this is the Lord is going to begin to give His apostolic bride permission to move into a place of prosperity through this process, because we've set ourselves not to figure out, not to get strategic, okay, not to be stealthy right now, but to glow. Many are going to try to figure out how to catch momentum on the other side of this and really go do something big for God. I want you to think in terms of glowing, not going. That what you and I emit on the other side of this is a light that even from a posture that is be still and see the salvation of the Lord, that light begins to become so attractive that nations and kings begin to move toward the radiance of what you and I are becoming. We've been being prepared for this. We've been learning about being seated here for 7 years. We've been learning about what it means to come into rest for 7 years. That my life has been changing radically for now around 7 years, where the Lord has begun to come, got us off the road and got us into this posture, into this place, put faithful people around us who would dare to believe. I can't wait until this building is filled with the family again and I can see your faces and look into your hearts and see what the Lord's doing in you. But in the meantime, we're going to experience some incredible things in the secret place that are going to position us to manifest a much greater and stronger light in the days to come. So I would say to you, walk in hope and expect that there's a light that's going to begin to come from you. Here's the thing, darkness and gloom being all around you, if you'll shine now, nobody will be able to ignore it. When darkness and gloom covers the earth, when a radiant light begins to stream from you and I, it's going to be seen without even trying. All we're going to do, sit and burn. That's what I've been asking the Lord. I want a fresh fire in my belly. I want a fresh fire in the secret place. I can't do a lot about corporate revival right now, but man, I can focus on a personal renewal. And if you and I can get more committed to personal renewal, I believe renewed people are going to come out on the other side of this and we're going to see global revival. Remember the distinction I've been teaching you between renewal and revival. I did not come into this needing revival. The nations need revival. What you and I need is to get more and more seated and committed to this process of being renewed day by day, transformed day by day. Amen? It's just an awesome thing. The Lord's given us an awesome opportunity. So I don't think it's a reach to say that we have been uniquely prepared for this hour. Those of you that are a part of our local assembly, those of you that are a part of our family beyond just the local house here, it's not a reach to say that we've been uniquely prepared for this hour. We've been asked to rid our hearts of all previous performance orientation and to be fully seated in the rest that only authentic, beloved identity can manifest. Let me read that again. We've been asked to rid our hearts of all our previous performance orientation and to be fully seated in the rest that only authentic, beloved identity can manifest. It feels as if in some ways we're receiving once again a fresh grace to finally finish some things, to finally, fully finish the exchange. I know we thought we were doing that in December, and I don't know that we didn't. I think to the measure of grace that was available, we opened up our hearts. But for a month now, the Lord's been talking to us here about opening up more deeply. The last Carolina revival, the theme of those meetings would have been, open up, you ancient gates. Open up in the deep parts of who you are, because Yahweh's wanting to finish an exchange in us, because He's going to position us that as we come through this, we become cities set on a hill that cannot be hidden. A light begins to come forth from the people of God that's absolutely supernatural. So I think we're being given another measure of grace to finish the exchange. And the theme of what's on my heart right now has been this idea that what the enemy has meant for evil, God will turn and use for good. That idea is originally found in the story of Joseph. Joseph's brothers have, toward the end of the story, they've had it revealed to them that this man that they've been talking to, that is second in command only to the king himself, he's subject to nothing but the throne. He wears now the signet ring for authority in all of Egypt. That was the most powerful nation in the world. Some would say if it was still currently in existence, it would be the most, as it was, it would still be the most powerful, wealthy nation in the world. Joseph is holding that signet ring. He's been given a collar, which is likened unto a robe, that he wears that positions, he's a man of authority. He travels in the king's chariot everywhere that he goes. It's an amazing story. He's there before his brothers. He reveals his identities to his brothers. You remember he sends them home and says, is there another brother? He knows there is. It's his full-blooded brother Benjamin. And he says, bring him to me. They bring Benjamin to Joseph. Joseph then, through a process of testing, reveals his identity. As Joseph reveals his identity, their initial response is, of course, fear, because these are the ones who threw him into a well, sold him into slavery, cut up his coat of many colors and covered it with the blood of an animal and pretended to their father as if their brother was dead. And here he is, their only hope for salvation during a famine. And it's Joseph who originally makes the statement, what you meant for evil, God has turned and used it for good. And I feel like what the Lord's been showing me about the life of Joseph, and I feel like a volume of this has been developed in my heart. But one of the things that the Lord has been showing me is Joseph, after he is abandoned by his family, after he's mistreated by his brothers, Salah, Wilderness Society message happening right there. After he's mistreated by those that are closest to him, he's sold into slavery. He's sold to a people that are not of covenant, and he begins to function as a slave. However, because of a right mentality and perspective, the presence and favor of God is so upon the life of Joseph that he ends up being sold to a chief in the house of Potiphar. Sold to a chief in the house of Potiphar. Everything he does so prospers because of the measure of presence that he carries. This is fascinating in the Passion Translation in the book of Genesis. If you're looking for something to read while you've got a lot of downtime, just go read the story of Joseph. He's in Potiphar's house. The presence he carries is so strong that he gets promoted. He's carrying presence. He's operating in diligence. He's incredibly disciplined. He's very faithful, and he's on the fast track until the plan falls apart, seemingly, and he ends up in prison over a false accusation concerning Potiphar's wife. He ends up in prison, and in prison, he's being most positioned for the fulfillment of the promise of a dream he had when he was a young boy in a field with his brothers. And I want to say to you, in a season where it may feel like you and I are on lockdown and locked up, I believe we're being positioned to inherit a seat of authority that's greater than any authority we've ever operated in our lives. This has been so alive on the inside of me. I shared it with some of the folks that were here this morning. I've been sharing it some with Tammy at home, but I feel like what the Lord is saying is, had everything just continued to progress the way it was progressing, it's likely Joseph would have ended up in a position that his diligence would have gotten too much credit for. But when you're thrown into prison, and by way of being imprisoned, you get promoted, there's no way you're able to take any credit for the authority that you've inherited. All the glory goes to Yahweh alone. So he ends up locked up in prison, and while he's on lockdown, rather than seeing this as an opportunity to throw up his hands and quit, he actually becomes the man in highest authority of all the people that are imprisoned. He's now over all of the other prisoners. He's in charge of all of the other prisoners, and he's dreaming and interpreting dreams while he's locked up. I believe this is an hour where we're going to dream. I believe this is an hour in which the Lord is going to show us some more things about the things we have been dreaming and give us a spirit of revelation and some new insight. Interestingly, if you go into the book of Genesis, specifically in the Passion Translation, what he's thrown into is the king's prison. Paul called himself the prisoner of the Lord. I want you to see this. That Joseph is able to look at the end and his brothers and say, y'all didn't do this. All of this was God. I think we're going to be able to stand on the end of this and say, the coronavirus did not do this. This is not COVID-19. This was not the economy. This was the Lord. Understand, the Lord did not sell Joseph into slavery, and the Lord has nothing to do with the coronavirus. However, when you get to the end of it, you so see the favor, the blessing, the prosperity that you begin to operate in, that there's no way you can look at it and do anything but give God glory, because you never would have gotten there any other way. And so Joseph ultimately ends up on the other side of a season where he's locked up and locked down, but in the king's prison. Salah. He's being committed, watch this, to being the prisoner of the king. That's why when you look at the other people who are in the prison, you're not seeing a bunch of rank criminals. You're seeing bakers and you're seeing butlers, right? And so what happens is the Lord is asking people to come into a place where we're locked in with Him. And if we can be locked in with Him, new dreams are going to start to come during this process. And some understanding concerning some dreams that maybe you and I have carried for years and years. The Lord is going to take the time for us not to figure out how to run out there and get it done. We can't. But what we can do is sit alone, captive to the King. And that's what I feel like the Lord. I want to give the King my captivated heart in this season in a way that I never have. I've never seen any of this. I've never taught any of this. This is coming alive in my heart right now in this hour that we're in. I want to live with my heart captivated by the King in this season in a way that has never been captivated by the King before. And the end result of that will be that Joseph said, while I'm here, I might as well function in authority. While I'm here, I might as well bring hope to guys that are in a hopeless situation. I might as well interpret some dreams while I'm here. I might as well use what God's given me by way of his presence to see other people in a place of breakthrough. If you and I will do that, we come out on the other side of this in a seat of authority that we got to only by way of presence. And that's the when Joseph interprets the dream of the king, and I'm giving you the real cliff notes of this. Joseph ultimately interprets the dream of the king and says 7 years of famine, and then they're going to be followed by 7 prosperous years, or 7 prosperous years, and then there's going to be 7 years of famine. So we've got to really save well. We've got to really build up our storehouses. I feel like that's what the Lord's doing. He's going to build up the storehouses during this hour, and we're going to come out on the other side of this resourced to be able to bring breakthrough into other people's lives in a way that we never have before. And so for me, in a really unique way, I feel like the king has me captive. And the end result is going to be greater authority. The end result is going to be the fulfillment of the dream. But it doesn't always happen the way that we think it's going to happen. Let me say it like this. I don't know that I've ever seen it happen the way we thought it was going to happen. What he actually does is he takes what the enemy meant for evil. It wasn't God that God didn't tell a lie on Joseph to get him in prison. The enemy is trying to stop the dream from coming to pass. And Yahweh's just making sure that there's more equity being built in Joseph's testimony, that when I got to that place, I got there supernaturally and by no effort of my own. All I did was remain faithful to carry the presence. And if you and I can remain faithful to carry the presence, then I believe we're going to begin to stream a light that's going to begin to cause us to come on the other side of this day with our hearts held captive by the King. That's been my word in my heart. Lord, hold my heart in captivity to you alone. And I feel like that took an opening up. That's what the Lord's been causing us to. Let me say that, is this enough for you? I mean, we can't do the bells and whistles. We don't do the bells and whistles here anyway. But I'm talking to a lot of people that are not just a part of this assembly. That we can't. You can't now say, I love this church because of the children's program, the coffee, and the smoke machine, and the high energy of the praise and worship. None of that's accessible to you in this hour. Some people are still going to try to put that show on, but it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same. I can sit down and watch Chris Stapleton do a concert on television, but I've been in the building when the man sings, and the two things are not the same. And so you're going to have to, presence is going to be personal devotion to Jesus. A heart being held captive by the King is going to have to be enough for us in the days to come. And I believe a group of people, a remnant of people all over the globe have been uniquely positioned to embrace that my heart is captive to the King in this hour. And on the other side of this, we're going to come into a place where the dream begins to be fulfilled. And I want to challenge you, if right now you seem like you're further from the dream than you ever have been before, it may be a season of you being repositioned. Repositioned for the promise. What was going on when Joseph was in the king's prison? That whole time, Yahweh was working under the ground. He was working in that underground prison to make sure that Joseph ended up right where he was supposed to be. Why? Because he had a nation he wanted to save. Israel needed salvation. I think America is going to move into her most significant hour of revival and awakening on the other side of this COVID-19 deal, because a company of people that have been busy, and a company of people that have been restless, and a company of people that have had our trust in the wrong place are going to finally get to the place where we say, one thing have I desired of the Lord, that will I seek after. That one thing commitment is allowing my heart to be held captive, for him to lock his gaze with my gaze. And I'm not doing as well there as I want to, but I really want to in this hour be okay to just have my eyes fixed and locked on Jesus. And from there, I just think there's no limit to what the Lord's going to do in and through us. And my prayer today is that just through a little bit of dialogue, just through a little bit of sharing of our hearts of what we're believing for in this hour, that maybe a recalibration takes place, maybe a reorientation. I feel like I can't go anywhere. I feel like I'm on lockdown. Awesome. It's jealousy. It's the king wanting to hold your heart captive. I want no other captivity, but I absolutely want a heart that's held. I want to be his most captive audience during this season where I focus on one thing and one thing alone. So I'm just here today. I love you guys. I love the people's faces I can see, even though there's only a few of you. I love the people that are in this room, and I can picture the other faces that are normally here, and then I can picture the people that are in Ohio watching this. I can picture the people that are in Italy and Australia that are watching or going to be watching this, and the sons and daughters that we've got that are planted all over the country. It's just an awesome thing to be able to speak on behalf of the King and find out what is he doing in this. I think we've missed the purpose of the prophetic for years. I think we made the prophetic to say this is what's coming and it's going to be tragic, and we become these prophets of doom and gloom. Remember what Isaiah said covered the earth during the hour? Gloom. We don't need to be giving people gloom right now. There's gloom aplenty. What we need to be giving is a hope that shines a light through that gloom and causes people to see God's going to take this and he's going to absolutely cause the enemy to see, once again, you've overplayed your hand. You pushed for one result and the opposite actually came to pass. The people of God have had their hearts held captive by the King, and by way of that, they're being promoted into the most significant season of authority that you and I have ever walked in before. I really feel like if there's one word that is going to define what we inherit, and I think there's a lot. I'm careful saying that because I think there's a lot of words that are going to define what we're going to inherit on the other side of this. One that really rings true in my heart this morning is authority. Joseph came out of a season of lockdown with greater authority than he ever could have gotten to just by way of his own diligence. He's on the fast track in Potiphar's house when he gets thrown into prison. He's actually in charge in a position seated higher than Potiphar himself by the time he comes out of the prison. This is what the Lord will do. The Lord's going to cause some of you to leapfrog in this season. The word I got it at I have it all typed out. I got it at 2:25 in the morning about a week ago. And the Lord said, I'm going to catapult people into new positions of authority on the other side of this. And I began to write things about it. I even began to study the process of how a catapult works. But it is actually you looking for a season as if you're moving away from the target. You're being taken back, moved seemingly away from the target, because there's an hour in which he begins to launch you, and you never could have gone as far as you're about to go had you not done well in the season where it looks like you're moving away from the target. Amen. So I bless you to receive this as a gift from the Lord, and to pray for light to be seen in hopeless situations, to pray for lives to be spared during this whole process, to pray for people. I've been specifically praying for people to stay out of a suicidal state during the middle of all this, because as the fear and the anxiety and some of the financial challenge comes with this, that people would stay in a place of peace that surpasses all understanding, and that you and I would be brokers of that peace that surpasses all understanding as people walk through this process and they walk through this challenge. So we bless you. All of our senior leadership team is here, and we love you guys. The worship team's been here. We love you. I don't know what we're going to do next week, probably something like this, but maybe change the format up a little bit, but we love you. We bless you guys. I know some of you, I got a text this morning, people were going to be watching from the dock on the lake house. So that's an incredible place to go to church. Now, you do have to come back when all this is over. We're not going to keep us. See why I don't live stream Sunday morning? Too many people got lake houses. So we bless you. We thank the Lord for what he's doing in the earth. I pray your family time is so sweet, that the memories that you're creating together as family are just absolutely incredible. And more than that, I pray that your time with the King, Even as I'm saying that, I begin to think of people who say, I don't have any family here. I'm here alone. I'm locked down by myself. Even more, I want you to see that as jealousy, that the King wants to hold your heart captive so that he can have you all to himself. So we bless you. We love you on behalf of all of us, Carolina Revival, Hope Chapel. Folks, we're praying for you. If we can help you in any way, Logan is still coming into the office, our church secretary, and then my staff is still coming into the office. So if we can help you, send us an email, give us a prayer request. That's what we're doing. We're praying, we're locking in, we're going after the Lord. For our local family and company of people here, I miss you. I really miss you. And I can't wait for us to get back in this building together again and just go after the King. So we love you. We'll be keeping you updated by way of email as to what's going on, I guess Facebook and things like that, to help you know where we're headed. And this has been strong today. You can feel the presence of the Lord here, and I'm believing, trusting that you were able to feel it where you were. So give us some feedback. We love you guys. We bless you. May your heart be held captive by the King. Let me pray over you. Father, I thank you for this really unique group of people that you've given us to run with. And Lord, you know that I have said to you many times, I've never seen another group of people like this in my life. I did not know there could be a group of people with one singular focus that would give themselves to the life of devotion, and that would be enough. And in this hour, I thank you that that is enough for this company of people. So I bless them to bring light into every situation where there's gloom. Everywhere there's a gloomy situation, I pray that we would be able to emit a great light. Capture our hearts in a unique way in the secret place. We would be happy to have our hearts be prisoners to the King during this season. Let my heart burn for you and you alone. Let the people receive fresh grace to finish the exchange. And I thank you that our generational consciousness is being stirred in a fresh way. Our kids are being equipped and prepared to experience the lifestyle of the kingdom that you've designed them for. May the kingdoms of this world become the kingdoms of our God and of His Christ. I thank you that the knowledge of the glory of Almighty Yahweh is covering the earth as the waters do cover the sea. That we're asking you and you're giving us nations as your inheritance. This has not changed the plan. This has not changed the dream of God, nor is it changing the dream God's imparted into us. So we believe for great days and great things to come in the days ahead. I thank you for the churches that are under our care, our authority and responsibility. Increase them during this hour and this season. Bless them, Father. Bless their finances. Bless them with health and strength. Surround them round about with a shield, and let them come into great days of growth, breakthrough, and increase in the days to come. We honor you. We honor you. We honor you. Thank you that you let us be forerunners to go ahead and prepare for what's going to be a great turnaround in the nation. I agree with the song more than I ever have before. This thing is turning around. We love you. We bless you. We'll see you soon.